He laughed. Not a chuckle, an actual laugh that echoed off the glass walls of the conference room. A waste of time, my boss said, flicking my printed proposal back toward me like a dirty napkin. Sit down, Allison. My ears burned. 20 pairs of eyes slid away from mine, finding sudden interest in their laptops, their phones, the table grain. Anywhere but my face. My hand tightened around my pen until my knuckles went white, the plastic threatening to crack under the pressure. I'd spent 6 months on this. 6 months of late nights after everyone else had gone home. 6 months of research, market analysis, competitor studies, financial projections. All reduced to nothing in 8 seconds. The fluorescent lights felt too bright. The room too small. My blazer too tight across my shoulders. I sat. Slowly. Each inch downward felt like surrender, like admitting he was right to dismiss me. The leather chair squeaked underneath me, the sound impossibly loud in the sudden silence. He didn't even look at me again. Just waved his hand toward the projection screen like I hadn't spoken, like my 6 months of work hadn't existed. Now, as I was saying before the interruption, Q3 targets. My idea, my carefully researched, thoroughly documented proposal for a subscription-based analytics platform, dismissed before he'd even read past the executive summary. I'd watched his eyes during my presentation. They'd never moved below the first paragraph. My stomach dropped, and I knew this moment would follow me forever. The moment I'd been publicly humiliated for trying to contribute something meaningful. My boss ignored my proposal and called it a waste of time, then it made me millions while he watched. That's the sentence that would later headline my life. That would appear in business journals and podcast interviews. That would become the story people told when they talked about recognizing opportunity when no one else could see it. But back then, sitting in that conference room with shame crawling up my spine, all I felt was heat spreading across my neck and a quiet promise forming in my chest. A promise that this wouldn't be the end. That his dismissal wouldn't define me. I just didn't know yet how powerful that promise would become. How it would transform my entire life within 18 months. My name is Allison Phillips. I was 32 years old, the only woman on the product development team at TechVista Solutions, a mid-sized software company in Austin, Texas. I'd been there 4 years, working my way up from junior analyst to senior product strategist, though my title sounded more impressive than my paycheck suggested. I was the lowest paid person on my team despite carrying half the department's workload. I knew because I'd accidentally seen the salary spreadsheet when someone left it open on the printer. The number next to my name had made my chest tight. That meeting wasn't the beginning of my problems at TechVista. It was just the proof, delivered in front of witnesses, that no matter how hard I worked or how good my ideas were, I would never be valued there. Victor Rowan had favorites. They were easy to identify, the ones who laughed loudest at his jokes, even when they weren't funny. The ones who played golf at his country club on weekends. The ones who somehow failed upward, promoted despite mediocre results because they fit Victor's vision of what success looked like. I didn't fit. I asked too many questions in meetings. I brought data instead of gut feelings. I pointed out flaws in strategies when everyone else nodded along. I didn't know how to flirt with authority or pretend incompetence was brilliance. My direct work was excellent. Everyone acknowledged that privately. But excellence without the right performance didn't matter. Not to Victor. Not at TechVista. I'd learned that the hard way, year after year of watching less qualified men get promoted while I stayed exactly where I was. The proposal was simple. A niche subscription product targeting small business owners who needed affordable analytics tools. The market research was clear. Small businesses were underserved. They needed something between free basic tools and expensive enterprise solutions. The retention potential was massive. The development costs were reasonable. The profit margins were strong. Low risk. High reward. Clear market gap. Victor had never read past the first page. I knew because I'd found the proposal later that afternoon in the recycling bin near his office. The pages were pristine except for a coffee ring on the cover page. Not a single note. Not one highlighted sentence. Not even a question mark in the margins. He'd dismissed it without even attempting to understand it. After the meeting, Kyle from marketing pulled me aside near the elevators. "You embarrassed him," he whispered, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. "You know how he gets when someone questions his judgment." I stared at him. I didn't question his judgment. I presented a proposal he asked us to develop. Kyle shrugged uncomfortably. "Yeah, but you made him look bad in front of the team. Like he should have thought of it first." That's when I understood. This wasn't about business viability or market opportunity or revenue potential. This was about control. About maintaining the hierarchy. About reminding everyone that ideas only mattered if they came from the right person. And I would never be the right person. Not at TechVista. I needed this job. My savings account had maybe $3,000, enough for 2 months of rent and groceries if I was careful. My student loans demanded $500 monthly. My car needed new tires. My health insurance was tied to my employment. Walking away wasn't an option. I had no safety net, no wealthy parents to fall back on, no spouse's income to cushion unemployment. I was alone in this, carrying my own weight entirely. If I pushed back against Victor, I'd be labeled difficult to work with. If I complained to HR, I'd become the problem employee. If I stayed quiet and accepted the humiliation, I'd disappear into irrelevance, passed over forever. There was no good choice. Only survival. I didn't argue with Victor after that meeting. I didn't cry in the bathroom, though my eyes burned with unshed tears. I didn't vent to co-workers who might repeat my words. I didn't send angry emails I'd regret later. I went home that evening, opened my laptop at my kitchen table, and pulled up the proposal. I stared at it for a long time, reading through the research I'd compiled. The market data. The financial projections. The competitive analysis. Everything in those pages told me I was right. The opportunity existed. The solution was viable. The market was waiting. So I rewrote the proposal, this time without the TechVista logo in the header. Without any mention of my employer. Just the pure idea, standing on its own merit. I registered an LLC under my own name 3 days later. Philips Analytics Solutions. The filing fee was $300 I couldn't really afford, but I paid it anyway, using money I'd been saving for new work clothes. The state of Texas processed my paperwork within a week. No drama. No announcement. No telling anyone at work what I was planning. Just quiet, deliberate steps toward something Victor never thought I was capable of building. Something he never imagined I'd have the courage or resources to attempt. I worked on it every evening after work, every weekend, every spare moment. Building the minimum viable product. Creating the landing page. Setting up payment processing. Writing documentation. It consumed me completely, but I'd never felt more alive. 2 weeks after he'd dismissed my proposal, Victor presented my idea to the executive team. I heard about it from Kyle, who'd been in the meeting. He completely butchered it, Kyle told me over coffee. Couldn't explain the market positioning. Got the numbers wrong. Made it sound way more complicated than it actually is. The executives passed. Said it didn't align with company strategy. Said the market wasn't proven. Said they needed to focus on their core business. Victor came back to our department meeting the next day with a smirk on his face. Well, I took that analytics idea to the leadership team. They weren't interested. Guess my instincts were right the first time. He looked directly at me when he said it, like he'd won something. My beta version launched with 10 users. They were friends, former colleagues from previous jobs, people I'd met at industry conferences. I'd reached out individually, explaining what I'd built and asking if they'd be willing to test it. All 10 said yes immediately. Within a week, I had 50 users. Word of mouth was spreading faster than I'd anticipated. Small business owners talked to each other, shared tools that actually worked, recommended solutions their accountants and consultants hadn't heard of yet. By week 3, I had 300 paying subscribers at $49 per month. $14,700 in monthly recurring revenue. More than half my annual salary at TechVista, automated and growing. Every notification felt like oxygen returning to my lungs. Like validation I'd been suffocating without. I lived a double life for 6 months. By day, I sat in TechVista meetings, nodding along to Victor's strategies, pretending my evenings weren't consumed by something completely separate. I answered emails. I completed my assigned projects. I maintained the appearance of the reliable employee I'd always been. By night, I answered customer support emails and watched retention metrics. I refined features based on user feedback. I optimized the onboarding process. I studied churn rates and conversion funnels. I taught myself marketing and sales and customer success. I slept 4 hours most nights and smiled through the exhaustion. Coffee became my closest friend. My apartment became an office where dirty dishes piled up and laundry went unwashed because every spare minute went into Philips Analytic Solutions. But I'd never been happier. A mid-size accounting firm reached out 3 months after launch. They'd discovered my platform through one of their clients and wanted to discuss partnership opportunities. Would I be interested in creating a white-label version they could offer under their brand? They'd handle the sales and customer acquisition. I'd maintain the technology and take a percentage of revenue. The contract they proposed was worth $200,000 annually, guaranteed for 3 years. $600,000. More money than I'd made in my entire career at TechVista combined. I stared at the offer letter for 20 minutes, hands shaking, knowing this was bigger than me now. This was real. This was sustainable. This was proof that Victor had been catastrophically wrong. I signed it the next day. Victor denied my annual raise request without even looking up from his computer. I'd come prepared with documentation, metrics showing my contributions, examples of successful projects I'd led, market data on comparable salaries. The folder sat unopened on his desk. Budget constraints, he said, his tone suggesting the conversation was already over. Be grateful you're employed, Allison. Lot of people would love to have your position. His words landed exactly as he intended them, as a reminder that I was replaceable. That I should know my place. That ambition was inappropriate for someone like me. I thanked him. Calmly. Professionally. Without betraying any emotion. Then I walked back to my desk and checked my business bank account. Philips Analytic Solutions had just crossed $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue. $600,000 annually, growing 20% month over month. I crossed 7 figures in annual revenue projections that night. $1,200,000, to be exact, if growth continued at the current rate. Conservative estimates put me at $900,000 even if growth slowed significantly. Optimistic projections pushed past $2 million within 18 months. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, staring at the spreadsheet. The numbers didn't feel real. They felt like something that happened to other people. People with business degrees from prestigious universities. People with family money and industry connections. Not people like me who'd been dismissed and humiliated 6 months earlier. I didn't celebrate. Didn't call anyone. Didn't open champagne or treat myself to dinner out. I just closed my laptop and breathed. Let the reality settle into my bones. Let myself believe finally that I was going to be okay. Articles started appearing about Philips Analytic Solutions. Small trade publications first. Disruptive newcomer in small business analytics space. Unexpected growth in crowded market. Why small businesses are choosing this unknown startup. The coverage was modest but growing. Tech blogs picked up the story. Podcasts reached out for interviews. Industry analysts added my company to their market reports alongside established competitors with decades of history and millions in venture funding. Victor forwarded one article to the entire product team with a joke in the subject line, "Competition, huh? This is what happens when you focus on niche markets instead of real opportunities." I read his email 3 times, then archived it without responding. Let him think what he wanted. Reality would correct him soon enough. TechVista scheduled a major pitch meeting with Cascade Financial Group, a potential enterprise client worth millions in annual contract value. I walked into the conference room that Tuesday morning and froze in the doorway. The Cascade team was already seated, their laptops open, presenting something to Victor and the sales team. On the projection screen was a dashboard I recognized immediately. My dashboard. Philips Analytics Solutions interface, customized with Cascades branding. They were already using my product. Had been for 3 months, according to the implementation timeline they were discussing. They loved it. Wanted to expand to additional departments. Wanted to discuss integration possibilities. With my competitor. With TechVista. My stomach dropped as Victor's eyes found mine across the room. Victor's confident smile faltered mid-sentence. His eyes flicked between me and the projection screen, confusion spreading across his face. He could see the recognition in my expression. Could see that I understood something he didn't. The Cascade lead was still talking, praising the platform's intuitive design, the responsive customer support, the reasonable pricing. It's honestly been transformative for our team. Best decision we made this quarter. I met Victor's gaze. Steady. Unapologetic. Letting him wonder why I looked so calm when TechVista was supposedly about to lose a major deal to a competitor I seemed to recognize. Allison, he said, his voice tight, perhaps you should. Actually, the Cascade lead interrupted, turning toward me with a smile. Aren't you the founder? Allison Phillips, right? I recognize you from the About page. The room went completely silent. The question hung in the air like a physical presence. Victor didn't breathe. The sales team sat frozen, mid-presentation. One of the junior account managers made a small choking sound. Every eye in the room turned to me, waiting for my answer. Waiting to see if this was somehow a misunderstanding. Waiting for me to deny it or explain it away. I could have lied. Could have claimed it was a different Allison Phillips. Could have manufactured confusion and bought myself time to figure out how to handle this privately. But I was done hiding. Done shrinking myself to fit into spaces that didn't value me. Yes, I said clearly. I'm the founder of Philips Analytics Solutions. No apology. No qualification. Just truth, finally standing upright after months of bending. The meeting dissolved into chaos within seconds. The Cascade team looked confused. Why was the founder of their analytics platform sitting in a competitor's conference room as an employee? Victor's face turned red, then white, processing the implications. The sales director started making excuse sounds, trying to salvage something from the wreckage. There's clearly a conflict of interest here, the Cascade lead said, closing his laptop. We'll need to discuss this internally before proceeding with any TechVista partnerships. They left within 5 minutes, polite but firm. The potential multi-million-dollar deal evaporated before it had even begun, and everyone knew exactly whose fault it was. Victor turned to me after they'd gone, his voice dangerously quiet. My office. Now. I followed him down the hall, passing co-workers who'd heard what happened, their expressions ranging from shock to poorly concealed satisfaction. The meeting in Victor's office lasted 12 minutes. He demanded explanations. Asked how long I'd been operating a competing business. Wanted to know if I'd stolen company resources or intellectual property. Threatened legal action and breach of contract claims. I sat calmly and explained the timeline. How I'd developed the idea on my own time, using my own equipment, after he'd publicly dismissed it. How nothing in my employment contract prohibited outside business ventures. How I'd been careful to never use company resources or confidential information. You made me look like an idiot, he finally said, his voice raw. No, I replied. I built something you said was worthless. Those are different things. The silence stretched between us. Then I stood, pulled my resignation letter from my bag, I'd written it that morning, somehow knowing this was coming, and placed it on his desk. I'm giving you 2 weeks' notice, effective immediately. I walked out of Victor's office and directly to HR. The director, Patricia, listened to my resignation with a knowing expression. She'd seen this pattern before, talented employees leaving because they weren't valued, taking their potential elsewhere. Can I ask where you're going? She asked as I signed the separation paperwork. I'm going to work for myself. Full-time. She smiled, the first genuine warmth I'd received from anyone in TechVista leadership. Good. You deserve better than this place gave you. Victor didn't speak to me again during my 2-week notice period. Didn't attend my goodbye lunch. Didn't acknowledge my departure email to the team. I cleaned out my desk on a Friday afternoon, packed 4 years of my professional life into a cardboard box, and walked out of TechVista Solutions for the last time. The April sunshine felt like freedom on my face. The acquisition offer came 3 months after I left TechVista. DataCore Analytics, a major enterprise software company, had been watching Philips Analytics Solutions' growth with interest. They wanted to acquire my company, integrate the technology into their existing platform, and bring me on as Director of Product Innovation. The offer was substantial. $3.2 million for the company, plus equity in DataCore, plus a 3-year employment contract with a salary that made my TechVista paycheck look like lunch money. I negotiated for a week, then accepted. My lawyer handled the paperwork. The wire transfer cleared on a Tuesday morning, and I sat in my apartment staring at my bank balance, unable to process that the number was real. $3.2 million. My name on every document. My idea, validated and valued beyond anything I'd imagined 18 months ago. I saw Victor once more after that, at an industry networking event 6 months later. He was standing near the bar, drink in hand, looking older somehow. Smaller. The confidence that had seemed so absolute was diminished now. I'd heard through mutual connections that TechVista was struggling, that he'd been demoted, that the company was bleeding talent to competitors who actually valued innovation. Our eyes met across the room. He nodded, the gesture carrying something that might have been respect or might have been defeat. I couldn't tell which, and I realized I didn't care. I walked over, and we exchanged brief pleasantries. Professional. Distant. "Congratulations on your success," he said finally, the words clearly difficult. "Thank you," I replied. Then, because I meant it sincerely, "Thank you for teaching me what not to wait for." His expression flickered with something. Regret, maybe, or recognition of the opportunity he'd wasted. I smiled, finished my drink, and walked away. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just free. Because I'd learned the most important lesson. If someone calls your vision a waste of time, listen closely. Not to their words, but to what they're afraid of. Their dismissal says everything about their limitations and nothing about your potential. Know your worth. Build quietly. Work relentlessly. And let success say what you never had to. The rest takes care of itself.